Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. I invite you to stand at this time for the opening prayer, which is going to be done by Keisha Johnson. She's a member of the organizing committee. After which we'll remain standing for the national anthem, which will be rendered on steel pan by our newly appointed cultural ambassador, Rodney Small. Keisha?
Let us pray. Lord, you are good and your mercies endured forever. And Father, we give you all honor. We give you all the praise that you deserve. For yet we are alive to see another day. We thank you for all that you have done for us and all that you will continue to do for us. And Father, even now we place this event into your hands. Dear God, we give you thanks and praise, dear Father, for the opportunity that we are here. Father, we thank you for UWI. We thank you for all the persons who would have taken part in this competition, dear Father. Lord, I ask that you continue to bless them individually and collectively. Father, you give us each gifts and talents. And dear God, we thank you for the gift of writing, for the gift of art, dear God. So, Lord, we place everything once again into your hands, and we ask that you will have your own divine way in and through our lives. And Father, I pray when we leave here today that you'll take us to our home safely. This I pray in not a name, but the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. I pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Keisha and Rodney, please be seated, everyone. Head of the University of the West Indies Open Campus, Mrs. Deborah Dalrymple. President of the Vincentian Association of Artists, Writers, and Producers, Ms. Renee Batiste. Nominees for this year's awards, as well as past recipients. Judges, sponsors, entertainers, representatives of the media. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Marla Nanton James, and it is a big pleasure to share this evening with all of you here. As MC, I warmly welcome you to this literary awards ceremony hosted by the University of the West Indies Open Campus in collaboration with the Vincentian Association of Artists, Writers, and Producers. With that said, I'd like to get the show on the road, and to do that, I invite Mrs. Dalrymple, the head of the UWI Open Campus, for the welcome remarks. Please welcome as she comes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to recognize Honorable Renee Batiste, Camille Lacram, head of the administrative head, I should say. I call it the administrative head. Administrative officer of the University of the West Indies Open Campus in Vincent, other members of staff, last year's winners, this year's finalists. Welcome to our second annual Literary Awards ceremony hosted by the University of the West Indies Open Campus in collaboration with the Vincentian Association of Artists, Writers, and Producers. Usually, this ceremony is part of the annual literary fair. This year, however, due to the COVID restrictions and the limitations of space, the literary fair was postponed. We are, however, committed to producing the full fair next year, hopefully at our renovated site. At this year's Literary Awards, we'll be presenting the awards to the finalists of the Poetry and Fiction Competition, which is a joint initiative between the UWI Open Campus St. Vincent and Dr. Nigel Thomas, Professor Emeritus, a Vincentian who resides in Canada. Professor Thomas remains committed to the development of literature here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The prize for poetry is called the S.V.G Poetry Prize, and the prize for fiction is called the H. Nigel Thomas UWI OC S.V.G Fiction Prize. The Vincentian Association of Artists, Writers, and Producers, our co-host for this event, is determined that the contributions of artists to our society's development not go unnoticed. And so once again, the organization will recognize the lifetime achievements in 2 art forms. I pause now to show our appreciation to the Honorable Rennie Baptiste, who has not only been an advocate for the arts, but also an ardent supporter of all the efforts made by the St. Vincent site of the Open Campus. At the St. Vincent site, we hold fast to our obligation to provide a viable space for artistic expression, to provide an avenue to showcase Vincentian artists, and artisans, to inculcate in the Vincentian public an appreciation of the arts, to recognize the importance of the arts as a repository of cultural mores and norms in our society, and to foster a love of reading, writing, and other forms of cultural expression. Why the focus on the arts? Artists, and artisans are all storytellers. They help us to understand our world and to shape our worldview. We see our experience through another lens and thus broaden our experience and understanding. It is through the arts that we leave a footprint for subsequent generations, and it is through the arts that future generations know of their ancestry and learn from whence they came. The written word gives us a window into the lives of the people distinct from ourselves sometimes. We are able to allow our imagination to take flight and see a story from the narrator's perspective, or indeed their story from our own perspective. Barbara Esprit, in her paper, The Value and Importance of the Arts and the Humanities in Education and Life, stated that the exposure to the understanding of the arts is key to developing qualities of responsible citizenship. This year, I was once again in awe of the creative output of the writers and poets who entered the competition. We are so grateful for your participation. Without further ado, I'd like to have us begin our celebration and wish to thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Can you please put your hands together for Mrs. Dalrymple? Thank you very much for your remarks, Mrs. Dalrymple. And as you've heard, we will witness this evening the presentation of the S.V.G Poetry Award. I do look forward to that. The Dr. H. Nigel Thomas Fiction Award, as well as 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards. We move briskly along to our next item on the program. Well, it's actually not on the program, but it's going to be a poem with drum accompaniment. And to do this, let's welcome Nzimbu and his partner, Shane Wynn. Thank you very much to Nzimbu and Sheen. We now have the judges' comments in the categories of both fiction and poetry. We'll start with Mrs. Michelle King-Campbell, after which we'll have Blazer Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, sorry. I just want to acknowledge the presence of Miss Renee Batiste, the Honorable Renee Batiste, Miss Deborah Dalrymple, head of the UWI campus, open campus, the media, participants, members of the public. I was gifted this task of reading comments made by the judges for the H. Nigel Thomas fiction, and I was happy to do so, as one of the judges was my past teacher, which is Dr. Sandra Robinson. Firstly, we commend the UWI Open Campus St. Vincent and the Grenadines for using the idea of H. Nigel Thomas, the UWI Open Campus Fiction Prize, to invite and provoke writers within the diaspora to hone their craft and, by extension, to promote fiction and creative writing that tell the stories of the Caribbean experience. It has the potential to cultivate a platform for emerging Vincentian writers who are inspired by the optimistic and diverse experience of Caribbean reality and literature. The narratives were generally of a good standard. A good variety of topics was presented, and most reflected a fair level of originality and a good level of creativity, with a number of stories integrating an element of the paranormal. The effort by the writers to produce stories that would capture the reader's imagination and interest was evident. There was also a clear attempt by the writers to include special aspects of local reality. With respect to fulfilling the criteria established by the scoring rubric developed by the judges based on the guidelines and which were used to assess the fiction or stories, the following was also observed regarding how the criteria spread across the fictional stories. 1. The originality criterion scored 63%. The creativity criterion scored 70%. Story structure criterion 60%. The language use criterion 70.5%. The observation here is that, for most part, the candidate's written expression was generally good, and so too was the level of creativity. Originality and structure, important elements of fiction or short story writing, while fair, were not the most outstanding. Some other observations regarding the presentations. 1, too many fell short, in some cases, very short of the word limit. Some stories may have been improved had the writers paid more attention to developing their narratives to a greater degree. At least 2 stories were only about 1/3 the required length. 2, while the use of language was generally of a good standard, especially related to dialogues, proved to be a significant problem, even though it did not significantly affect the reader's understanding. Finally, the following are suggestions, recommendations we wish to make regarding the way forward with this contest. 1, it is important to have a rubric developed ahead of time. In the initial advertisement, there should at least be some indication of the general criteria that will be used for judging the entries, even if a detailed rubric is left to be determined by the judges. We have included with this report a scoring rubric we developed to guide the assessment process. This can be used as a starting point and/or adapted for future use. 2, care should be taken to make sure that all personal information is removed from the submissions before these are sent to the judges. The importance of anonymity as a support for objectivity cannot be underestimated. At least a few of the names may have been known to the judges, and such a situation then depends on the professionalism of the judges to maintain objectivity. More importantly, the contest announcements indicate your name, address, telephone number, and email, and the title of your submission should be on the title page only. Your name, address, etc. must not appear anywhere else in your submission. The jurors will not receive the title page. This was neither enforced nor maintained. 3, perhaps the open campus can also, if this is not yet in place, consider writing workshops that focus on areas which, as revealed by the contest, need strengthening. A writing workshop is a great opportunity to enable the growth of new voices. It is also a platform for writers to learn from one another and from established writers, and for budding writers to have their work subjective to peer review and critique. We thank you for the invitation to serve as judges in the process, Dr. Sandra Robinson and Deborah Providence. And I want to thank the UWI Open Campus for offering me this opportunity to bring these comments on their behalf in their absence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And before Blazer comes, particularly for the representatives of the media, I think I ought to mention that the competition was open to all Vincentian writers of fiction and poetry who reside in St. Vincent or are studying abroad. It was also open to persons assigned to Vincentian embassies and consulates. And these persons were invited to submit a single poem or 3 to 7 short poems of 700 to 1,000 words, so between that range. And in the other category, for the fiction, they had to submit a short story or a chapter of a novel which did not exceed 3,000 words. I just wanted to give you that backdrop. So I turn over now to Blazer.
Pleasant good evening to all. I must, of course, recognize Sister Rene Baptiste. And we go a very long way back. And as members of the Vincentian Association of Artists, Writers, and Producers. And of course, the head of the UWI Center in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Sister Debbie Dalrymple. Our comments will be pretty short. As most of you may know, poets can write a novel in one verse. So I think that's a reflection of what our comments would be like. Poets are not much different from painters. They are architects and choreographers of linguistic designs, painting images with words on the canvas of life experiences, hidden and exposed, known and unknown, which stimulate our sensibilities. They give meaning to life beyond the ordinariness of our existence, our joys, our happiness, our sadness, and our hopes. The poems in this competition are reflective of all these qualities or characteristics. There were poems which exhibited admirable technical skills, the use of tropes, figures of speech, similes, metaphors, oxymoron, rhyming schemes which gave movement and rhythm to the poem. There were those which drew our attention to the need for some aspiring writers to apply themselves more to the development of their artistic potential. Now, we believe that some of this comes from the fact that many persons do not believe in reading the works of other people or listening to others reciting or performing their poems. The way in which we are able to hone our skills and to develop our own techniques and our ability to use words in particular ways, shape them, organize them in different ways, would depend a great deal on the extent to which we explore the world of literature. So, because you're a writer, doesn't mean you shouldn't read. And I think that is very critical. It expands our framework. In fact, it goes beyond operating within, as I mentioned before, the ordinariness of our existence. Because as writers, we go beyond the immediate. We go beyond what we see around us. And so the unseen becomes important to us. Vision is not just a matter of a physical appearance. Vision goes beyond the physical. And that is why the poet is someone who explores beyond our humanity. And perhaps there's a tendency to believe that some artists are crazy people, if you put it that way. Because they see things that some people don't see, ordinary people don't see or take for granted. Subjects and themes covering the natural environment, its beauty, harmony, the joy it brings, and unfortunately, how change challenges our ecosystem, covering love, requited and unrequited, politics, race, identity, patriotism, death and birth, and COVID-19 were all in the competitive mix. We suggest that in order to ensure the quality of the presentations are of a pretty high standard, that the number of poems which each person can submit should be limited to, say, 2 poems. We think this would give the writer a chance to focus in on the work before him or her, to make adjustments, adaptations, extensions as they go along. Because this is what happens, you know, you write something today, and tomorrow you look at it again and you say, wait a minute, no. I think this line is not in the right place. It should be some other place. I shouldn't use this word before that word. This is how you are able to build and to create a good piece of art, a good poem, or whatever the particular category may be. If it's a novelette, a novel. We tend to go back, change things, adjust and adapt. So we believe that if there is a limit to the number of submissions, writers would focus more and so develop the work. We must say we were really very impressed by a number of poems. In fact, I'm so moved that I expressed to Debbie that I would like to read at least one of those poems, but I think the person will read it, I believe. But we were really impressed. And I want you to understand that a poem, in order to be good, doesn't have to be long. Doesn't have to be 3 or 10 verses. It can be one simple verse. And that one verse can speak to volumes in one's head. And so we would like to congratulate the winners, and we certainly hope that they would continue to create. Thank you.
Blazer said, poets are not different from painters. And speaking of painters, I want to invite you to view the paintings on the walls afterwards. They were done by a Cuban visual artist. She's an art teacher and an art therapist as well. And her name is Daviana Basilio. She's right here in the audience. Daviana, stand and take a bow. She readily agreed to display her work here this evening. Thank you very much. So we move on now with remarks by someone who really needs no introduction. She's widely loved in the creative circles. So all I would say is please welcome to the podium, Mama Culture.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Mrs. Debbie Dalrymple, Head of the Open Campus, UWI, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Successor Blazer Williams, my co-member and conspirator-in-chief, as well as I see the President Eclipse Owner Association here, Mr. Bennett, and other artists, and La Gracia dancers. Every year I know I see different people in the audience, and I know sometimes people wonder, what is this alliance with this association and the UWI Open Campus? Around 11 September, the Cuban ambassador said to me, you must still keep your connections with the Republic of Cuba, because they had invited me to the International Book Fair in Havana. And when you go to the International Book Fair in Havana, it is something like our Carnival Festival. They live, eat, and breathe reading. The way that we love our soca, raga soca, calypso, best costume, which girl looked the best on stage. And when I went there, I met so many persons from different universities, and they told me that, do you know that there's a memorandum of understanding with the University of the West Indies? And I said, no. So when I came back, I mentioned it to Mrs. Dalrymple, and the next year invited her. She was, of course, very cautious because you hear all sorts of things about Cuba. And when she went to the book fair, she literally stood in her shoes and she wondered. Because there were at least 100 countries exhibiting books of all descriptions. And in the evening, you have entertainment. Of course, Rodney and Ray John went, and Darren, when they were at university in Jamaica, and they were able to perform in the night. And one of our best artists to perform was Scorpion, until they made Scorpion perform in the streets of Havana 2 o'clock in the morning. They didn't get enough of him at the magnificent Havana Jazz Club. Now, you don't get into the Havana Jazz Club. You have to be invited. Just to let you know, because each year we have different people who come to this. And we don't get the press in St. Vincent. But by 4 in the morning, when Scorpion came in, the girls in the hotel told him his name is in the newspaper in Havana. Do you think they would put his name here in the newspaper? Because we have a habit in St. Vincent of not lauding our own artists and artists. You turn off the radio and say, them again? But you will tune in for what does get me vexed. So my plea is to keep the radio station on and listen to Calypso College. I don't think any people here would know that it has been going for 21 years. And the reason I tell you this is that as a young person growing up in my mother's home, she would tell me about the concerts of yesteryear. It was either Pismo, upstairs the Carnegie Public Library, or upstairs the House of Assembly. That's where you used to have concerts long ago. Or if you're an artist of note, you perform with the Mellotones at Harbor Club. So this is all sort of for you to be able, when you leave St. Vincent, to have an informed conversation when people start asking you questions. Because they do that in Cuba when we had our exhibition. They start asking you questions, and you must have the correct information to give them. They were amazed that we knew about Dennis Felix, and his books were on exhibition in Cuba. His books are in English, but every Cuban teacher, professor who came to our booth knew him. How many people in this audience know about Dennis? Okay. Well, he's an Englishman. At least we have a transplant who can tell you about that. But that's just to let you know, he came, he had a house in Mustique. He's a writer. He started magazine with Kung Fu in the years when he used to have Bruce Lee. And he became a billionaire doing a magazine. He's a Vincentian, was a Vincentian. He died from his own sins, as he likes to say. Smoking, chain smoker. So he died, but he left a legacy in poetry, and he wrote so many of them in St. Vincent. So this is what we are about as an association, looking for artists, writers, telling the business community to not only look for the young people, but also to have a sense of appreciation of the art created by our own artists, and don't do calendars with snow. So you would see over the years, if you start casting your head back, oh yes, I see they take pictures of the cathedrals and the churches. And you start seeing pictures of hibiscus and beach scenes and so on, because it took people like myself who would put it in writing and write and tell them. Lastly, as I close, also, in about the late 1970s, I had to sit to do some work in the courthouse, reading the old newspapers. And so when we started the fair, we would always ask the court and the library to do an exhibition of the older newspapers. And they were, in fact, newspapers, pages and pages. And they had European news, British news, and the news in St. Vincent. And I was so intrigued by the amount of writing that was done by our forebears. And it is important that you have a sense of grounding in your own art, be it writing poetry, writing novels. As I told Blazer, his last book, I almost identified all the characters because I'm old enough, but the rest of you won't. But you would. How did I? Because I used to sit in the dusty courthouse in the summer and read the old newspapers. That's how you learn about your country, so you can have a conversation with people and they understand where you are coming from. So we decided we would give Icon Awards, Legend Awards, Lifetime Achievement Awards, and give to persons whose works have not even yet been recognized elsewhere. That's why you see Lexi is our icon this year, and Calypso College for our Recognition and Achievement Award. I want to encourage the young people today, who I see the class of 2020 in events management, and that I'm looking forward to seeing shows similar to shows that I saw at MJM Grand in Las Vegas and at the Apollo Theater in New York. You can do it. I have the confidence that you could do it. And do not allow people to make you go below that standard. We have become accustomed to that will do. It won't do. Because I would not go to a sponsor. I run this organization and take people overseas, sometimes 14 people overseas, by writing and telling people, I want you to pay for this affair, and they do it. But they're assured that when I write it, they know Miss B not going to take any rubbish. That you have a mark of quality. And that is what I insist. That's with Sister Debbie here. And we will continue to do this. Now, I don't have to do it, but it makes no sense that I do not have the courage of my own conviction. And literally must put my money where my mouth is. And Brother Blazer is of a similar mind. So those of us who have this mind, we work together and we are going to create this. You know, we have a National Song Archives. How many persons in here know that? See? We have a National Song Archives. And the reason for that is to make sure you have on record, if you notice on TV news, when an artist like the man that sang Islands in the Stream, Kenny Rogers, when he died, and CNN and all these stations are bringing back his pictures, and they will do a little 15-minute in the news, and afterwards you will see the credits. Well, that's also how he's dead and he's still earning money. And those films are in the Library of Congress. We have our library. We have our archives. I quarrel with the radio station. Please, please get those tapes and store them at the National Sound Archives. It's not for me. I heard them already. It's for those kids that are going to dance. Congratulations to the winners tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. B, with that important appeal for us to appreciate our local talent more. La Gracia Dance Company, the floor is now yours. Please come forward, after which we'll move right into the presentation of awards. Please welcome La Gracia Dance Company.
especially caters for holiday makers. So do not omit it when you visit the West Indies. Come to St. Vincent, a friendly welcome awaits you. Renowned for its sun and sea and the best hospitality. No winter too fair, no smog in the air, just beautiful sunshine from the clear Caribbean skies. No contamination from poor sanitation. This land is a health resort that nobody can deny. Come to St. Vincent, a friendly welcome awaits you. Renowned for its sun and sea and the best hospitality. The Grenadine Islands, fine tourist attraction, with waters that beckon you to swim all your cares away. The white sandy beaches, you shower with praises, and take away memories that rooted forever will stay. Come to St. Vincent, a friendly welcome awaits you. Renowned for its sun and sea and the best hospitality. The dishes you relish, souvenirs you cherish, and sightseeing tours, most refreshing tropical breeze. Then from the West Indies, take back pleasant memories of your holiday in the gem of the Antilles. Come to St. Vincent, a friendly welcome awaits you. Renowned for its sun and sea and the best hospitality. See the market vendors, hear the loud street choirs, couples passing by in the cool of the setting sun. Pleasure so inviting, legend so exciting, in this Lahairuna, lovely island, the Caribbean. Come to St. Vincent, a friendly welcome awaits you. Renowned for its sun and sea and the best hospitality.
Another round of applause for the La Gracia Dance Company. With their rendition of Come to St. Vincent. And it's that time, we're into the presentation of awards, so I invite Mrs. Dalrymple to come forward as we present the award. The first place in the fiction category. All right, so in first place, we have with a piece titled Green and Brown from My Childhood.
Which one are you doing? Which one are you doing? Poetry or fiction?
I beg your pardon. This is fiction. So in first place, with a piece titled Twilight in the Tropics, let's welcome Kathy Badnock. Kathy Badnock. Is Kathy our representative here? All right, so we do have prizes for second and third places. So Denise Westfield, second place, come forward. The representative of GECU, please, to present the second place, which is actually sponsored by GECU. Keisha? So receiving the second place award for her piece titled On Her Way Home, Denise Westfield. We now move on to third place. And in third place is Tamara Tony with her piece, The Silence She Inherited. The Silence She Inherited. Tamara Tony of Ndambi Cards. Okay, so Tamara is receiving her prize for 3rd place. And this is compliments Samantha Williams, founder and director of Sharing Hands, Helping Hands. Okay, so at this time we move on to the reading by the winner of the fiction category. She isn't here. All right, so we move on. We will hear the winning piece, though. We move on now to the National Literary Awards for Poetry. And out front in this category is Africa Daniel. Africa Daniel with her piece, Green and Brown from My Childhood. Africa Daniel. And she's receiving her prize from Mrs. Camille Lakram, Administrative Officer at UWI. In second place, we have Ocelyn Oliver. Ocelyn Oliver. Ocelyn is a student of St. Vincent Girls High School and is from Bequia. I know you, Ocelyn. So in second place, Ocelyn is receiving this award for her piece titled A Place I Feel Connected To. And perhaps this place is Bequia, a place I feel connected to. Congrats, Ocelyn. And now in third position, we have Gayleen David. Gayleen David for her work, What More Can a Rose Long For? What more can a rose long for? Mrs. Lakram? Or someone from UWI? Thank you very much. And now we move on to the reading of by the winner of the poetry category. So the reading by the winner of the poetry category. Yes. You have it on your phone? Yes, please. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, I can manage. Good night, everybody. Green and brown from my childhood. Its branches will sit on top of the galvanized roof until the wind escorted them elsewhere, always almost awakening a screeching noise that will open my mind joyfully to fare, especially at nights, like welcoming a familiar stranger home. Its trunk was an old face, rough with cuts and holes, chops and lines in some unfamiliar race. I knew it had tales to share. Its roots, inquisitive, wanting to know what lies on the surface, and deep at the earthy heart. My brother got hurt there once. Trimming its branches, a silly mistake. He came to and asked what happened, like I had asked, when I picked the shell of insects from the experienced bark. We built a swing there, from some old copper wires and an abandoned termite wood. Reaching into the air felt good. I will close my eyes and taste the clouds sweet and sour like plums, wishing for my 3 chances on the hard ride to last for a lifetime. Coming back in swiftly to feel the warm palms of one of my sisters against my back, and swallow the rotten stench, the premature fruits, enduring their time with overly friendly flies being swept away. I never got all the way to the top. It's like being in a ship up here, my sister will shout down at me. As I cling to the bark, nails throbbing with pain, I slid back down, looking at my sister, peering between the chlorophyll leaves of happiness, rich yellow juice dripping from her chin. She'll grin as she reached for a larger fruit, tossing down some semi-green ones at me. Then we grew up, and the house changed. They took off its strong force, then its bark. The roots put up a fight though, like the sadness inside. Now it's just a space, page blank, after the preface to the first chapter of a book. The echoing of our laughter on that swing. I wondered if somewhere deep on the brong, a root was thriving, less inquisitive now, like how I've been, after the tree, in all its green, came down. I thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Africa. And because of the length of the winning piece for the fiction, I wouldn't read all of it, but I'll give you a little taste of it. Okay? So the name of it, Twilight in the Tropics. The full moon cast a spotlight on the yacht cutting through the still waters like a hot knife through butter. A distant roar announced the presence of its destination as the sea tattooed a heartbeat on the shore. This was its destination, a vacation in the tropics and a place to lay low from the heightened awareness to his kind caused by the Twilight movie trilogy. No one would question his absence during the heat of the day or think twice about his pale skin. He was, after all, a tourist. His boat would provide the privacy he needed for rest, while the forested island would allow for hunting. His research indicated that there existed a particularly hardy species of prey in the mountains known as the marijuana farmer. Their isolation and wariness after tilling the land will make for easy pickings before it was time to move on to another island. Anton felt the vessel slow to drop anchor. Offshore, let me take that again. Anton felt the vessel slow to drop anchor offshore as the crew carried out their instructions. As his bare feet hit the pristine wooden deck, he was hit by the cool, salty air. He saw his ship's captain and friend, a caramel-skinned man with salt and pepper hair, focused on giving orders to the crew. Many persons mistook them for brothers. Anton's tall, well-toned figure, an almost exact but younger-looking and whiter copy of Joseph's. But they were bound together more closely than brothers. He had given his life to Joseph, taken him to the brink of death with one bite, and brought him back with his own blood. This vacation in the tropics was a much-needed getaway for them both, an opportunity to sample the wares of the tropics. While the anchor dropped and sails put to bed for the night, Joseph and Anton jumped aboard and swam towards the welcoming shore to hunt. Time seemed to slow down and stop for Granny Pearl. She had just finished exiting the house of the fisherman through the keyhole and was airborne to her secret place in the lush forest to put on her skin when she smelled and changed. A delicacy, no, two delicacies had just landed on her shores. No moonlight bled through the dark foliage of the trees as Granny Pearl landed lightly and pulled the wrinkled skin out of the hollow of the tree. Like a piece of cloth, she always tried to smooth out the wrinkles in her brown skin with her hand before putting it back on. It also gave her the opportunity to taste the skin for salt and pepper. That was a nasty way to go for... Let me take that again. That was a nasty way to go for a sokuya, and she experienced enough to know to try to avoid it. Satisfied that her skin was safe, she wiggled into it and ran swiftly but lightly through the trees despite her full belly. Anyone observing her would have noticed a transformation the closer she got to the outskirts of town. Her back bended like a cane in the wind, and her gait took on a hobble before she slowed to a mortal speed. This was a customary precaution against prying eyes, since Granny Pearl had a reputation to protect as the God-fearing but slightly eccentric bush woman. Okay, so this is a portion of Twilight in the Tropics, the winning piece for the fiction. Okay, so Blazer, I'm told that you should be reading Africa's piece. Oh. Right, so he loves it and he really wants to present it. So welcome Blazer to present Africa's piece.
Yes. Green and brown from my childhood. Its branches would sit on top of the galvanized roof until the wind escorted them elsewhere, always almost awakening a screeching noise that would open my mind joyously to fear, especially at nights. Life like welcoming a familiar stranger home. Its trunk was an old face, rough with cuts and holes, chops and lines in some unfair race. I knew it had tales to share. Its roots inquisitive, wanting to know what lies on the surface and deep in the earthly heart. My brother got hurt there once. Trimming its branches, a silly mistake. He came to and asked what happened, like I had asked. When I picked the shell of insects from the experience back. We built a swing there, from some old copper wires and abandoned termite wood. Reaching into the air felt good. I would close my eyes and taste the clouds, sweet and sour like plums. Wish for my 3 chances on the hard ride to last for a lifetime. Coming back in swiftly to feel the warm palms of one of my sisters against my back and swallow the rotten stench of the premature fruits, enjoying their time with overly friendly flies being swept away. I never get all the way to the top. It's like being in a ship up here. My sister would shout down to me. As I clung to the trunk, nails throbbing with pain, I slid back down, looking up at my sister, peering between the chlorophyll leaves of happiness, rich yellow juices dripping from her chin. She'll grin as she reached for a bigger fruit, tossing down some semi-green ones to me. Then we grew up and the house changed. They took off its crown first, then its trunk. The roots put up a fight though. Like this sadness inside, now it's just a space. Blank page after the preface to the first chapter of a book. The echoing of our laughter on that swing. I wonder if somewhere, deep down, brung, underbrung, a root was thriving. Less inquisitive now, like how I have been, after the tree, in all its green, came down.
Africa, I hope you took some notes. Thank you very much, Blazer. All right, so we move on now to the Lifetime Achievement Awards, and I invite Miss B to do the first one, and Ms. Lacrom would do the second.
It was intended that the Lifetime Achievement Award would be for somebody who would be with us. So we had to change slightly after Lexi passed away and call it the Calypso Icon Award 2020 for his outstanding contribution to the Calypso art form as a lyricist, performer, and producer. I think the newspaper said it best. Last week, Friday, St. Vincent and the Grenadines lost one of its cultural icons and a patriot in the Calypsonian Alexis Lexi Joseph, according to fellow Calypsonian Glenroy Sully Caesar. Lexi will be remembered for perhaps his biggest hit, Ease Up Fisherman, a political commentary from the 80s. Lexi was one of those who assisted, along with Skate Saline, to form the Calypsonian Association and have it re-established again in the 1990s after a hiatus. And I think, according to Sully, he can be best considered his enduring legacy, bringing a high level of organization to the Calypso art form in the person of Alexis Joseph. He said, Sully said that Lexi became known in the Calypsonian arena, having worked along with so many of the others to keep the art form alive. He's a talented Calypsonian, an outstanding son of the soil, said Caba Bennett, who moved up front. While the title of National Calypso Monarch may have eluded him, and in 1986 he placed third with one of his loved members, Ease Up Fisherman, Lexi appeared in the Calypso finals so many times, but I think I best enjoyed him when he did impromptu renditions, especially during the extempo competition. There hardly was anyone who could compete with Lexi. The last time I saw him publicly was in November last year at the 10th Calypso Week when he was MC. He had such a vast knowledge that he can draw upon to keep the audience alive and awake at the wake, that many of us never thought that Lexi would leave us so soon. I'm hoping that Calypso College would dedicate at least once per quarter a session with the lyricist Alexis Lexi Joseph. Who's the family member? Yes, yes. You have it still. Okay. Blazer, would you do this one? No, he already organized. Okay. Just go straight.
Good evening, everyone. Protocol having already been established, I consider it a privilege to have been asked to read the citation on behalf of the Calypso College. Before I begin, I must thank Stephen. We go very far back. Our parents were the best of friends for many, many years. And some years ago, I had the opportunity to tell him that a particular program one night took me way back down memory lane. I don't have the few years that Miss Batiste has, but being a 70s baby, yes, that long ago, being a 70s baby, those were not the days of television much, and I spent many a night at my father's urging, sitting listening to the radio and the Calypsonians, especially out of Trinidad. So I knew all the old names. So that particular program sent me way, way, way back down memory lane. And I have to thank him so much for that, because much of that, without his involvement, would be lost. So I proceed. The Calypso College is a vintage Calypso program which features the music of Calypsonians locally and around the world. In addition to playing music, the show features interviews and discussion on matters of relevance and importance to listeners and practitioners in the art form. The Calypso College is believed to be the longest-running Calypso show on radio in the Caribbean. The program is highly respected for keeping the dying art of Calypso alive in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, encouraging youth to become involved and compete up to national monarch level. Its international reach and its extensive collection of music dating from as early as 1912 to the current day. The Calypso College has produced numerous events featuring well-known Calypsonians, including Chalk Dust, the Mighty Bomber, the Mystic Prowler, Explainer, Lord Nelson, Sugar Aloes, Trinidad Rio, and Lord Relator from Trinidad and Tobago, the Mighty Gabby from Barbados, and Posa from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The program has been recognized by the Ministry of Tourism and Culture for its outstanding contribution to the Calypso art form. Over the years, the Calypso College's existence, it became evident that there's a market for heavy concentrations of local and Caribbean content, including music and information. And as a result, in 2018, Stephen and his wife Cleo launched a 24-hour online radio station known as Sweet Radio S.V.G. In addition to the Calypso College, other popular shows include Pure Vinci, Reggae Calling, and an interview program, Life No Sugar Added. The Calypso College is hosted by Stephen Huggins, a well-known attorney at law and cultural enthusiast from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It was previously aired on WeFM 99.9 from April 1999 to December 2018. It is now aired exclusively on Sweet Radio SVG at www.sweetradiosvg.com and is broadcast live every Monday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, the Calypso College.
All right, thank you very much. And I invite Darky, is Darky here? David Darky Williams, to do a cultural presentation for us. This is a piece on Shakin. Please welcome Darky as he comes.
Sufre 79 by S.V.G. The split Good Friday in two. And that old new day groaned and panicked like breaking an old habit. People who were always leaving nowhere began arriving nowhere. Entire lives stuffed in crocus bags and used plastic bags. Naked children suddenly transformed into citizens. Ologists, with their guilty little instruments, were already oozing along the mountainsides, bravely and by radio. Flies ran away from the scene of the crime and hid in the secret places like Pilate, washing their hands. Mysterious people began ordering other mysterious people to go to mysterious places immediately. Three little girls, a bowl of bread and great ashes between them, tried to manure the future around a young plum tree. Leaves did not listen when wet. A bus traveling heavy, cramped like Calvary, thrust its panic into the side of a hollow. And the night's blanket appeared as if sent from some strange place overseas as a gift, was rent by a lightning. I heard of this old woman who had walked right back to hell to wash her Sunday clothes. An old friend called from New York to ask about the future. My Empire Cigarettes have been tasting of sulfur lately. I told her that.
Another round of applause, please, for that. Just before we move to the vote of thanks, I have to let you know that this event has been organized by the UWI Event Management Class of 2020. And I would just like them to come as I call their names. Aisha Williams Samuel, Carol Vera, quickly, let's do this quickly. Seneca Patterson, Denisha Davis, Desiree Thomas, Donique Kulzak, Enika Peters, Eustacia Walters, Joel Bibi, Jordan Harris, Keisha Johnson, Laurel Lewis Harry, Shadeja Gordon, and Tashika Haynes Bob. So these are the faces that all worked together to organize this event. The decor, the music, the food, the risk management. They advised me. Yeah, so thank you very much. And now I invite, thank you. Just a minute. A quick picture as Ronnie Daniel comes to do the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone, and let me also acknowledge the protocol that had been so ably established earlier. I want to say, first of all, it has been a fantastic, short evening, but a sweet evening, and so I want to add my congratulations on behalf of the head of site and my colleagues at the Open Campus to congratulate the class. This is the second cohort of students taking the events management course. And congratulations to you on putting on what is arguably a wonderful evening. And I don't want to preempt your tutor in terms of assessment, but I will say that it has been a fantastic evening. So please. And the other thing too, the flip side of that is that you have also made our jobs, our work at the Open Campus this semester where this event is concerned a little lighter, and so we thank you for that. And so I wish to thank our sponsors. First of all, we have two sets of sponsors. First, I wish to say thanks to those who have sponsored the awards. So Professor H. Nigel Harris is one of our primary sponsors, and he resides in Canada. Thomas, sorry, what did I say? Oh dear, Vice Chancellor Harris. Professor H. Nigel Thomas. He's a Vincentian from the Dixon Village area, and he's been residing in Canada for since the 60s. We thank him. Sorry? Yes, he is. And he has written quite a few pieces, and you could check out his personal page. We also want to say thanks to Mr. Wayne Crichton, the director of WAD and Arabesque, WAD agencies and Arabesque. We really thank him for his contribution, his support. Also GECU, and of course GECU has always been a partner with the Open Campus, but they have stepped up to assist us in this project, in lifting the art here in St. Vincent. We want to say thanks to founder and director of Sharing Hands, Helping Hands, our colleague Samantha Williams, for your contribution. Or is it the other way around? Sharing Hands, Helping Hands, or Healing Hands, sorry. All right, thank you very much for your sponsorship. We also wish to acknowledge the sponsors of our program this evening. They are on the back of your program, NBC Radio, Chill Spot, Courage Distribution, Tusty Water, Hyrule, Teachers Corp Credit Union, of course, GECU, we mentioned earlier. And also we do have present here this evening other members of the media. We thank you for coming to archive this event. And I think Sister Rennie made a point very forcefully about the need for us to archive our work. And I can't say that better. We need to continue to archive almost every facet of our culture and what we do here in St. Vincent for future use and for research purposes. I also wish to thank, in a special way, the Teachers Cooperative Credit Union for the use of this facility. Thank you very much on behalf of the class and the Open Campus. Of course, I wish to say thanks to my colleagues at the Open Campus for the work behind the scenes. And let me just go directly to the program. I wish to acknowledge the persons who participated in the program actively this evening. First of all, we say thanks to Keisha for your prayers earlier, for Mrs. Dalrymple for her welcome remarks. Of course, we thank Mrs. King Campbell for the judge's comments, and we try our best as an Open Campus and our partner to take these comments seriously so that we could improve this product that this collaboration that we have. Of course, it's always a pleasure to listen to Brother Cecil Blazer Williams, and I want to say thank you publicly for your work over the years and for your continued support, not just of this event, but all our Open Campus events. Of course, Sister Rennie, we wish to express our thanks to you as well. I think right after Mrs. Dalrymple joined the Open Campus as head, I think we got running right away, and I know you gave the prelude in 2011, but I'm sure at our very first literary fair, we started this in a small space in the Open Campus, and it is growing. And of course, we had some setbacks over the last couple of years in terms of the space at the Open Campus, but that we have fixed that, and I'm sure in the new year we will have something bigger and grander. But Sister Rennie, thank you for your continued support and for your comments earlier and for the challenges that you gave. Our performers, La Gracia dancers, please. David Darky Williams, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to these two organizations, the La Gracia dancers. I think more than the act itself, what stirs me and amazes me is the outfit, and I think that our dear Sister Brown pays a lot of attention, team, to these costume and design and so on. So thank you very much, La Gracia Dance, and of course, Brother David, we thank you for that piece, that beautiful piece by Shay Keane. It's always a touching piece. I wish also to say thanks to Sister Marla for chairing this session this event. She's not new to this, and so she always does a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Sister Marla. If I have inadvertently left anybody out, I do apologize. Sorry? Oh yes, so earlier. So let me say thanks to brothers Nzimbu and Rodney Small for their contributions earlier. And okay, thank you. I think that's about it. Thank all of you for coming this evening. And I don't know if we're online, but I want to thank everybody. I wish to turn you back over to our moderator. But also, our tutor is here, Sister Barnwell, Cheryl. And the work that you see, she is somehow responsible. So, all right, while it's their effort and collaboration, she has done a fantastic job since we started this program. So thank you one and all, and have a pleasant evening. I think we have a post cocktail, so we invite you to stick around and to enjoy the delights that we have. Thank you very much, Cap, and those who have behind the scenes with the technical things.
Thank you very much, Ronnie, and it's just left for me to thank you for your attendance and for your attention, and to ask for your assistance in filling some evaluation forms on the request of the organizing committee. So please assist them. The forms will be circulated after we have finished. Also, they have advised me that food was prepared specially for you, so please partake on your way out. And right, and all of the awardees, you're invited to come forward quickly for a quick photo shoot. So thank you very much, and once again, it has been my pleasure. Thank you.